Hello children, today we are going to learn the lesson of Honeycomb class 7, 4th unit, the ashes that made trees bloom. Let's begin this lesson. Before reading, let's get some information about this story. This is a story about an honest and hard-working old couple and their pet dog. The neighbors are troublesome and the dog dies a sad death. The spirit of the dog gives solace and support to his master in unexpected ways. Now see how the dog helped its owner, okay, its master. Now we'll understand. Okay, let's begin the lesson. In the old days of daimyos, there lived an old couple whose only pet was a little dog. Having no children, they loved it as though it were a baby. The old dame made it a cushion of a blue crepe, and at mealtime Muko, for that was its name, would sit on it as snug as any cat. The kind people fed the pet with tidbits of fish from their own chopsticks and all the boiled rice it wanted. Thus treated, the dumb creature loved its protectors like a being with a soul. See in the first paragraph. Now daimyos means what? The daimyos means landlords, which were or landowners, which we find in Japanese history around 19th century. So in olden good days of daimyos, in landlords' days, in those days there lived an old couple. And they had only one pet. And it was a dog. And its name was Muko. What was the name of the dog? Muko. And the old couple did not have any child, so they loved Muko as their child, as their kid. They treated the dumb creature in a nice way, and the dumb creature also the dog also loved its master. The kind people fed the pet with tidbits of fish from their own chopsticks. Whatever they used to eat, they used to give the dog, and they were feeding the dog. Now the second paragraph. The old man, being a rice farmer, went daily with hoe or spade into the fields, working hard from morning until O Tento Sama. Means what? O Tento Sama means as the sun is called O Tento Sama. Had gone down behind the hills. Every day the dog followed him to work, never once harming the white heron that walked in the footsteps of the old man to pick up the worms. For the old fellow was a patient and kind to everything that had life, and often turned up a sword on purpose to give food to the birds. Now see in this paragraph, what does the paragraph says? The old man, being a rice farmer, the old man was a rice farmer. He was a farmer, and especially he used to have rice in his fields. He used to go daily to his field with hoe or spade with him. Hoe and spade, these are the instruments which are used by farmer. Hoe means a tool for loosening earth, and spade means a garden tool with a broad metal blade, which is used for loosening earth and keeping or pushing earth from one place to another. Okay, and every day the dog used to go with his master, and whenever he used to go with the master, the dog never troubled. To whom? To the birds. He never troubled to the birds. The birds are called white heron here. He was also kind, like the farmer, like its master. So the old man, when the old man walked, and with his footprints or footsteps, whenever on that footprints, the white heron used to take the insects, the small insects, small worms from his footsteps. And the last sentence says that the old man was very, very patient. He had patient. He was cool, and he was very kind to everything that had life. And he used to give. He used to help the birds by pushing the earth or the soil from one place to another, and the birds used to take the worms or the insects. Here, potato means he used to work in the field from morning to evening. From morning to evening. Now the next paragraph. One day the dog came running to him, putting his paws against his legs and motioning with his head to some spot behind. The old man at first thought his pet was only playing and did not mind it. But the dog kept on grinning and running to and fro for some minutes. Then the old man followed the dog a few yards to a place where the animal began a lively scratching, thinking it was possibly a buried bone or bit of fish. The old man struck his hoe in the earth when, lo, a pile of gold gleamed before him. See, the third paragraph says us that how the dog started helping. One day the dog came to the farmer running. He came running to him, putting his paws against his legs and motioning with his head to some spot behind, as if it wanted to show something to the farmer. And the old man thought, in the beginning, the old man thought that he is playing. The dog is playing with him. The dog is playing with the farmer. In the beginning, he thought. But the dog kept winning and running to and fro. It continued its action. So the old man understood that there is something. So the old man followed the dog a few yards to a place where the animal began to lively scratching. And he followed the old man, the farmer followed the dog. And when they walked few yards away, the dog started scratching the earth. And he also thought, the old man thought that it was possibly a buried bone or a bit of fish. He thought that there may be a dead animal which is buried under the earth. The old man struck his hoe in the earth. So the old man struck his hoe with the instrument which he had. He struck in the earth. So in the next moment, he found that there was a pile of gold gleamed before him. There was a pile of gold in the earth, under the earth. Thus in an hour, the old couple were made rich. The old souls bought a piece of land, made a feast of their friends, and gave plentifully to their poor neighbors. As for the dog, they petted him till they nearly smothered him with kindness. Here. So, when they got a pile of gold, in less time, the old couple became rich. And who made them rich? The dog, the loyal dog. And they just shared their joy with their neighbors, their poor neighbors. And they petted, they thanked the dog. Now in the same village there lived a wicked old man and his wife, not a bit sensitive and kind, who had always kicked and scolded all the dogs whenever any passed their house. Hearing of their neighbor's good luck, they coaxed the dog into their garden and set before him bits of fish and other dainties, hoping he would find treasure for them. But the dog, being afraid of the cruel pair, would neither eat nor move. So, when this kind old couple, they shared their joy with their poor neighbors, another wicked couple old man and his wife also used to live in the same village. But that couple was not kind. It was a cruel type of couple. They were not sensitive also. And they always kicked and scolded all the dogs whenever any dog passed their house. Hearing of their neighbors' good luck, so they also heard about the good luck of this kind couple, they coaxed the dog into their garden. Coaxed here, persuaded or enticed. Means here they wanted to tempt the dog to do something for them. So they used to give him some bits of fish and other dainties, hoping, they also hoped that if they will take care of, if they will give something to the dog will definitely help them to find a treasure. Help them that he would find a treasure for them also. But the dog was afraid of the cruel pair. Why? Because before that incident, before that day, this cruel couple used to kick and scold the dogs, and that's why this dog knew that this couple is not kind. Then they dragged him out of doors, taking a spade and hoe with them. No sooner had the dog got near a pine tree growing in the garden than he began to paw and scratch the ground, as if a mighty treasure lay beneath. So, one day, they dragged the dog out of the doors. They took a spade and hoe with them, and after some time, no sooner had the dog got near a pine tree growing in the garden. After some time, the dog found that there was a pine tree in the garden, and when he saw that pine tree, he started scratching the ground near the pine tree, as if there is a mighty treasure under the earth. "Quick, wife, hand me the spade and hoe," cried the greedy old fool as he danced with joy. And when he saw the cruel neighbor saw the dog is scratching the ground, he screamed. He called his wife and said, "Quick, wife, hand me the spade and hoe," as if he also knew that there is a treasure under the earth. Then the covetous old fellow with the spade and the old crone with the hoe began to dig, but there was nothing but a dead kitten, the smell of which made them drop their tools and shut their noses. Furious at the dog, the old man kicked and beat him to death, and the old woman finished the work by nearly chopping off his head with the sharp hoe. They then flung him into the hole and heaped the earth over the carcass. See here, when they found that the dog is scratching the earth, they also started digging the earth. But after some time, they understood that there wasn't any treasure, but a dead kitten. The smell of that dead kitten made them to drop their tools and shut their noses, and they were very angry towards the dog, at the dog. So the old man kicked and beat the dog so hard and so dangerously that the dog died. And the old man finished the work by nearly chopping off his head. So cruel. Now, with these sentences, we understand that the cruel couple was very, very cruel. They did not have any sentiment, or they did not have kindness in them. So at last they flung him into the hole and heaped the earth over his carcass, and they buried the dog. The owner of the dog heard of the death of his pet and mourning for him as if he had been his own child. When at night under the pine tree he set up some bamboo tubes in the ground, such as are used before tombs, in which he put fresh flowers. Then he laid a cup of water and a tray of food on the grave and burned several costly sticks of incense. He mourned a great while over his pet, calling him many dear names as if he were alive. See here, in this paragraph, we see that the owner of the dog, means who was the owner? The good couple, the old farmer, the rice farmer, the kind farmer. when he heard the news of the death of his pet, so he started mourning to show his sadness. So he started mourning, so he felt that as if his own child is dead, and he went at night under the pine tree. He went near the tree where the dog's body was buried. He set up some bamboo tubes in the ground. So around the grave of the dog, he set up some bamboo tubes, such as are used before tombs, as if he was trying to make a tomb of the dog, in which he put fresh flowers, and in that he put some fresh flowers, and he laid a cup of water and tray of food on the grave and burned several costly sticks of incense. So he, as if he wanted to remember his dog, his good deeds, good actions, as he was also a kind man. So he gave some water, he gave food, and he burned some incense sticks also, the smell which has a good smell. He mourned a great while over his pet, calling him many dear names. He loved so much to his dog, and that's why he was just calling the dog with the dear names, with many names. That night the spirit of the dog appeared to him in a dream and said, "Cut down the pine tree over my grave and make from it a mortar for your rice pastry and a mill for your bean sauce." So that same night the spirit of the dog appeared in the dream of the kind farmer and said, "Cut down the pine tree over my grave and make from it a mortar for your rice pastry and a mill for your bean sauce." So he gave an idea that cut down the pine tree and make a mortar for a rice tree, for a rice. So the old man chopped down the tree and cut out of the middle of the trunk a section about 2 feet long. With great labor, partly by fire, partly by the chisel, he scraped out a hollow place as big as a small bowl. He then made a long-handled hammer of wood, such as is used for pounding rice. When New Year's time drew near, he wished to make some rice pastry. When the rice was all boiled, Granny put it into the mortar. The old man lifted his hammer to pound the mass into dough, and the blow fell heavy and fast till the pastry was all ready for baking. Suddenly the whole mass turned into a heap of gold coins. When the old woman took the hand mill and filling it with beans began to grind, the gold dropped like rain. See here, this is the next help. Now, as told by the dog in the dream, the man chopped down the tree and he made a mortar. He scraped out a hollow space as a small bowl, and he made that with the wood, and he made a long-handled hammer for pounding that rice. And at the time of New Year's, he wished to make some rice pastry. At the time of New Year time, they wanted to make some rice pastry, and so after boiling the rice, the granny put it into the mortar. She put the rice into the mortar in the bowl. The rice was all boiled. Granny put it into the mortar. The old man lifted his hammer to pound the mass into dough, that bowl shaped, and he wanted to pound. And the blows fell heavy and fast till the pastry was all ready for baking. Suddenly the whole mass turned into a heap of gold coins. See, whole mass, whatever the rice, they wanted to make a rice pastry. And when he started pounding, suddenly they found that it was nothing but the rain of gold coins. Meanwhile, the envious neighbor peeped in at the window when the boiled beans were being ground. See, and meanwhile the neighbors, the cruel neighbors, They also saw that what was happening in their house, in the kind couple's house. "Goody me," cried the old hag, as she saw each dripping of sauce turning into yellow gold, until in a few minutes the tub under the mill was full of shining mass of gold. And in the beginning it was like the beans, but afterwards, at the end of the work, they found that it was nothing but the gold coins, the heap of gold coins in their house. Near the, when they worked, they started pounding the rice in the mortar. So the old couple were rich again. The next day, the stingy and wicked neighbor came and borrowed the mortar and magic mill. They filled one with boiled rice and another with beans. Then the old man began to pound and the woman to grind. But at first, blow and turn, the pastry and sauce turned into a fowl of mass of worms. Still more angry at this, they chopped the mill into pieces to use as firewood. See here. See, goody me. Sorry, afterwards, the old couple were rich again. Means the kind couple was rich again by getting the gold coins. The next day, the stingy and wicked neighbor, stingy and they mean miserly. Stingy means miserly, and wicked, cruel neighbor. They came and borrowed the mortar and magic mill from this kind couple. They filled one with boiled rice and other with beans, and the old man began to pound. So similar actions he started doing like the kind man, kind farmer. But what? At first, blow and turn, the pastry and sauce turned into the foul mass of worms. Instead of giving them gold coins, they found that there are worms. There are worms. The pastry and the beans started converting into worms, and again they became too angry, and they chopped the mill into pieces and to use as firewood. So they just chopped, they showed their anger by destroying the mortar and the mill. Okay, the first part here completes. Now we'll see comprehension check. Now, why did the neighbors kill the dog? There are various. What is the reason why did the neighbor kill the dog? Here, reason is that the dog did not help the cruel couple, as the dog helped the kind couple. Okay, why it was not? The jealous old neighbors killed the dog out of anger and frustration because the dog could not help them. Okay, mark the right item. The old farmer and his wife loved the dog. Why did the old farmer and his wife loved the dog? Because the answer C, because it helped them in their day-to-day life work, or B, as if it was their own baby, or C, as they were kind to all living beings. See, here we can say that they were kind to all living beings, but they loved the dog because as if it was their own baby. Third one is right answer, but for the question why they loved the dog, because they loved the dog because it was their pet and they loved the dog as their own baby. So here answer is B. Second one, when the old couple became rich, they gave the dog better food, invited their greedy neighbors to a feast, lived comfortably, and were generous towards their poor neighbor. What is that? Correct one is third answer is correct. They lived comfortably and were generous toward their poor neighbors also. The third one, the greedy couple borrowed the mill and the mortar to make rich pastry and bean sauce, magic ash to win rewards, or a pile of gold. So why they borrowed the mill and the mortar? They wanted to have pile of gold because they saw in the house. Okay, so here the first part comes to end. Now second part, another video will be there for second part. Bye bye.